What is up, guys? Frosty Osty 0232 here today for another Frosty Features. Newly announced, newly coming to Marvel Strike Force, we have Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew herself. We're gonna go through it. So, what these videos are is just a little bit of a comic book background on the new characters coming to Marvel Strike Force. I do this kind of in an attempt to give you that little bit of story that you might have missed from the blog post. So, please, you know, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, and I hope you enjoy. So we're gonna get into it with Spider-Woman. There she is right there, Jessica Drew. Her name sounds, it's got a certain ring to it, and if you look at her features, they also have other rings to it, right? First appearance, Marvel Spotlight number 3219, 76. I'm going to say more things in a bit, but I want to save all the good stuff for a little bit later. Powers and abilities. Okay, so as far as the spider team goes, a lot of your spider people have the similar powers, right? So let's say, for example, we take Peter Parker and we say that he's like reality. He's like your template for spider people. Jessica Drew, in my opinion, in my head, she's the fake one. She has extra powers, and some of them are just kind of odd, and they're I don't know. So, like all of the spider family, she has spider sense. She has a very limited flight capability, so she can glide short distances, which is cool. She has bioelectric blast like Miles Morales, so she can shock people when she touches them and stuff. Therefore, combat-wise, she's that's sort of the edge that Miles has over Peter Parker. She also has this. And she predates Miles by quite a bit. She also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she is the original organic web shooters. She does not use mechanical web shooters like most of the other spider people. She actually has organic ones. This predates the Spider-Man movie, the original Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, because of a fact we'll talk about in a little bit. But she makes her own webs. Aliases. Popular, of course, she's Spider-Woman. Arachne is her other one that's used a lot, and on occasion there's Spider Lady. She has a few other nicknames that people will refer to her as, but as far as aliases go, these are sort of the main ones she sticks in. Affiliations. New Avengers, Order of the Web, not A-Force. Sorry, it's a thing. It's a trend with Scopely. It's a trend with Marvel Strike Force. At least to my knowledge, she's never worked with A-Force. Granted, I'm not as well versed with A-Force, but I did go back and look. I know quite a bit about Jessica Drew, but A-Force, that's sort of where some of my comic knowledge lacks, is specifically with that team. But in going back and looking, that's not a Jessica Drew thing, but you know, it's chill. New Avengers, Order of the Web. She's typically affiliated with an different SHIELD operations. But yeah, so most notably New Avengers and Order of the Web. Background. Born in England, right? Moved to Transnia, which is one of Marvel's fake nations in Europe. So she's Transian. Yeah, Transian, moved to New York, because that's where everybody... if you're in Marvel, you have to live in New York at least once. Who died? So, welcome to the comic book world. You can't be a superhero without having a lot of death around you, right? There's obviously exceptions to that. It's a joke. But who died, right? Her childhood died. Absolutely. She was definitely her father robbed her of her childhood. Her mother died. Her father died. You know, it's a trend. She does not fight for their deaths. A lot of people, they kind of riff off of, you know, the whole Uncle Ben thing. You were inspired, so that's why you fight. No, mom was dead. Dad experimented on her. She became what she is. Spider-Woman for real. So this is something I was talking about earlier in referring to those organic webs. In canon, originally, she was a spider that was transformed into a human, right? So she wasn't human. She was a spider that got turned human. And that is why she, that's where the organic webs and some of her powers come from. But this was later retconned. So, her father experimented on her as a part of Hydra. And later they retconned her being a spider and turned into a human, and they retconned it where she was brainwashed to think that, and she actually was injected with spider's blood that her father was experimenting on, which gave her her power. So she, so she was no longer that spider human thing. So yeah, Spider-Woman for real. The Darkness. Jessica Jones. This is a fun fact, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do with comic book stories, but this is just such a neat fact about Spider-Woman. Jessica Jones only exists because of Jessica Drew. Brian Michael Bendis, the guy that created Jessica Jones, he was working on a storyline for Spider-Woman, and it got really dark, and he felt like the way that he was trying to take Jessica Drew was, it was so different that she almost had to be a different character, so he decided to then just make a different character. The parallels are there, y'all. So I referenced similar looks. Spider-Woman and Jessica Drew don't look very different, right? Their costume, yes, but as physicality, we have, you know, the same kind of style of, you know, face, hair, etc. Her name is Jessica Drew, Jessica Jones. They are both private eyes, superpowered private eyes, doing their own thing, right? But Jessica Drew, she's a little bit more, you know, classic comic booky. She's a little bit more bright. And Brian Michael Bendis wanted to explore that dark side, which is where we get Jessica Jones, who, if you know Jessica Jones at all, is a much, much darker character, right? So, fun fact, Jessica Jones was originally, she was made for a storyline for Jessica Drew, and they decided to make a new character. Fact. Good stuff. Alright, so, relationships. Jonathan Drew, her father, right? So her father was, he ended up, he worked with Hydra. He's partnered with the High Evolutionary for a while. Jerry Drew is her son. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Some spider powers, but canonically he's still a child, so not like a notable super exactly. Michael Marquand is her brother, who also has like pseudo spider powers, but not to the extent of Jessica Drew. Carol Danvers, she is notably very good friends with Captain Marvel, and that's a thing. Porcupine is a villain turned babysitter. He is a good friend of Jessica Drew's, and his name's Roger, and he goes from this villain to this weird kind of, I don't know if you call him anti-hero. He's a babysitter. He babysits Jerry, right? And that's sort of his thing now, is he sort of just watches Jessica Drew's kid. Notable events. Okay, so actually I'm gonna back up here a little bit because I thought I hit it, but I didn't. So when Jessica Drew was 3 years old, her father, that's her mother had died. Her father took her to Transia, and they put her in a tube at 3 and experimented on her with the spider blood or whatever, and gave her powers. And in the comics, she advances from the age of 3 to 17. Magic does this too, by the way. They're children, and then due to circumstances, they're young adults. They just kind of, and I think Magic turned 17 as well. She went from like 9 to 17 or something like that. But yeah, so Jessica Drew, she may look old, but she's actually, in canon, she's actually much younger. She's been on the Earth less time than her age relates, right? So they write her and they use her like she's an adult, but actually factually she's only a few years old, right? Timeline considering, but you know, age is weird in comics, but just a fun little fact. But yeah, so she sort of was, I don't want to call her a sleeper agent, but she was raised as unknowingly as a assassin for Hydra, and she was hired to kill Nick Fury. And throughout that process, it was revealed to her handler like messed up, and she found out that Hydra was bad, and that it was in fact Hydra that was sort of pulling her strings, and that's how she becomes affiliated with S.H.I.E.L.D., and we get the Jessica Drew we know and love now. So, pregnancy and motherhood. Very notably, she was pregnant and still kicking ass, right? So she got artificially inseminated, and because she wanted to be a mother, like notably a very good mother in the comics. She's very considerate, but one of her big weaknesses is out on a job, out and about. She essentially starts to long for her kid. I'm sure any parents watching this could probably relate. She'll long for her kid. She'll miss and worry. And she will often leave just to check on her kid. Roger, Porcupine, we referred to earlier, is notably a really good babysitter, but sometimes she gets too worried regardless, and she goes and has to leave to watch her kid. But yeah, so she there was a point where she was in a maternity ward and got in a fight, and she ended up having a C-section. I believe it was like during the fight, like, or right after she like kicked some ass. She had a C-section and Jerry was born. So very notably was pregnant for a while, for I guess at least one run, if not two. So that's a big thing. So her affiliation also with Carol Danvers led her to messing with some Kree stuff, right? So she, the Accusers, so if we know Ronan the Accuser, the Accusers are actually essentially a cult. Same with the Pursuer. So in Marvel Strike Force, we have Ronan the Accuser and we have Korath the Pursuer. The Accusers and the Pursuers are sects of certain types of Krees, right? So there's more than one Accuser, there's more than one Pursuer. They don't show up very often, but in canon there's more of them, right? They're not alone. Those are not the only guys that have those. And due to her affiliation with Carol Danvers and her aiding her in some Kree affiliated business, she becomes a Kree Accuser, and she is given a bit of Carol Danvers' power, which Carol Danvers has always powered down. She always loses her powers all the time. So anyway, she didn't lose them all the way, but she got weaker while Jessica Drew got this like astral form of her weapon, which was pretty cool. So yeah, she became an Accuser for a short period of time. Alright, so now we're going to talk about power level. That showed up at the wrong time, but that is totally chill. So the way my power scaling works, Marvel Strike Force does not power scale exactly, so I'm just talking about in the world of the comics. This is my opinion. So the way this works, going from top to bottom, our top is a multiversal threat. This is an individual who can end reality in all forms as we know it. Universal means they can end essentially a single universe, galactic terror kind of situation. Maybe they can hop universes and end another one. There's quite a few people on there that can do that. Yeah, so Universal's kind of there. Cosmic is devastation in a planetary fashion. You can take out, you know, planets at a time, maybe some solar systems, but you can't necessarily end the existence of one universe as it goes. Nuclear, planetary devastation, take out cities, large-scale attacks in a planetary sense, maybe to the point of taking out a single planet. So then we hop to, I know there's some big hops here. Then we're going into city. So city is essentially, if you tried, you could take out a building, right? So you might not be able to, you know, Dr. Manhattan, New York City. I just went DC. Oh, you might not be able to take out, New York City in such a way, but if you try, you could probably knock down a skyscraper or something by knocking out some walls or something. So city, notable characters in the city, just to put it into context, is like your Daredevils, your Spider-Mans, things like that. Daredevil being low end, Spider-Man being higher end. And then there's Greg. For the sake of this situation, I'm saying Greg is the power of a human. If I had a Red Bull and a properly sized sword, maybe I could take on Greg. Right? So for the sake of argument, Greg is people power, right? So there's a lot of spiders. Marvel Strike Force famously totes a lot of mutants. There has also become a nice there's a plethora of Spider-Verse characters, and there's a lot of spiders, right? And all the spiders play a similar game, right? So Jessica Drew's no different. She has some extra powers, but not enough that kind of tilts it one way or the other. So I classify Jessica Drew as a fairly high tier city level. In strength, her poison, her venom shocks, and her flight kind of help exponentially, but she's sort of like, as far as like canonically as the spiders go, I would put her right below Spider-Gwen, right? Whereas Peter Parker's the template. He's only better than other people because he's smart for the most part, right? Other spiders. So yeah, that is Frosty features Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. If I missed anything, I left anything cool out, Spider-Woman has a long history, y'all. 1976. Spider-Woman has a long history. If I left anything out, if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. Please give this video a like, give it a subscribe. Also, I stream on Twitch on Sundays starting at 8 a.m. We do character profiles every time there's a new announced character. We'll do the character profiles then, and sometimes, like in this instance where we have another character that is brought up, I'll do a dish. Sometimes I'll do 2, sometimes I'll do them on different days, but Sundays are when you can always reliably catch me on Twitch. Check it out. Like, subscribe, share, hit me up in the comments. I love you all. Thank you so much, and stay cool.